Hello dear chess fans, my name is Eugene Grinis. Welcome to my free chess school, from beginners to advanced, open for everyone who wants to improve own game. This video is intended for beginners. A rook is a powerful piece, but how to make the most of it? Some chess players find it difficult to develop the rooks effectively, because the rooks begin the game in the corners. Beginners often have trouble using their rooks. Rooks often seem not to play a part in their games at all. There are 3 rules to keep in mind about the rook. The first rule: rooks belong on open files, not blocked by pawns. The second rule: if you can penetrate with your rook into one of the first 3 ranks of your opponent's position, it will often be very strong for you. The third rule: rooks work very well in pairs. If there is something to attack along a file or a rank, think about putting both rooks there. Putting 2 rooks on the same file or rank is called doubling the rooks. In this position, white threatens bishop takes on f7 check, because if black captures the bishop, he loses the rook on d8. Notice how black's knight and bishop simply fail to attack anything in white's position, whereas white has fastened on the f7 pawn with deadly effect. Black takes on d1, and white recaptures with rook takes on d1. Now white's rook is clearly much more active than the black's rook on f8, which is forced to defend the pawn on f7. White threatens to play rook d7, which will attack the knight on e7 and the pawn on a7, as well as put pressure on the pawn on f7. How can black defend? Actually, there is no good defense. For example, bishop f6. Black tries to defend the knight with the bishop, but white attacks the bishop with knight e4. King g7. Black defends the bishop with the king, but white attacks the a pawn with rook d7. Once you control an open file with a rook, you can often use the rook to infiltrate your opponent's position. The rook is especially effective when it is attacking pawns deep in the enemy's position. If black defends the pawn by playing a5, there is no better move. If knight c8, then bishop a6, attacking the knight. Knight e7, rook takes a7. White wins a pawn and the game. a5, rook d6. White forks the bishop on f6 and the pawn on b6 along the 6th rank. This example highlights how strong it can be for the rook to penetrate to ranks deep within the enemy position. Knight g8, defending the bishop. Rook takes pawn on b6, winning a pawn and the game. Black could also play knight c6, defending the rook with the knight. But that does not really change the nature of white's advantage. White would play rook takes rook on d8. Black must recapture with the knight. And white occupies the open d file, threatening rook d7. For example, bishop h6, rook takes knight on d8. With this combination, white is winning a pawn. Rook takes rook, knight takes pawn, attacking the rook and the bishop. Rook f8, knight takes bishop check, king g7, attacking the knight, knight f7, rook takes knight, bishop takes rook, king takes bishop, king f3. White has an extra pawn in this pawn endgame and the winning position. Black can also defend by moving the rook away from d8. For instance, rook a8. But then white still maintains the attack against f7 pawn. Rook d7, attacking the knight. Rooks become especially powerful when they advance safely across the board to attack the enemy pawns. Bishop f6, defending. Knight e4, attacking the bishop. King g7, defending. Rook f to d1, and white has the d file for his rooks and is probably winning. One of the reasons that rooks belong on open files is that they can often deliver checkmate all by themselves. In this position, white shows off the power of doubled rooks. Black does have a rook defending the key d8 square, but white has two attacking rooks. Rook d8 check. To avoid checkmate, the black rook on e8 must capture the white rook on d8. Rook takes rook. White then delivers checkmate by playing rook takes rook on d8. Here is another example of why it is so important to double your rooks on an open file. The white rooks are dominating the only open file on the board. The two white rooks combine to attack the key e8 square. Black is defending the square with two rooks. The attack will work if white can eliminate one of black's defending rooks. White, therefore, begins with the aggressive queen sacrifice. The white queen captures the black rook on g8. Check. Black must recapture with the rook h8. The result is a simple 2-on-1 attack on the e8 square. Rook 8 check. Black then captures with its remaining rook. Rook takes rook on e8. Rook takes rook. Checkmate. The black king cannot escape from the final check by the e1 rook. It's checkmate. Rooks have a natural attraction to the 7th rank. Once on the 7th, a rook usually attacks many pawns and often traps the enemy king on the back rank. This position may look like an equal position to the untrained eye. However, black actually has a won game, because his rook can dominate the 7th rank. Don't let the term 7th rank confuse you here. When playing chess, your back row counts as rank 1, though black's 7th rank, for example, is the same as white's 2nd rank. Rook d2, attacking the c2 pawn. Rook c1, defending. c4 leads to the same type of things. King c6. King f1. King c5. Intending king b4 followed by king c3. a3 to prevent king b4. King d4. c4. Rook d3, attacking the b3 pawn. Rook b1, defending. King c3. King e2. Rook d2 check. King f3. Rook b2. And white must lose material. Loss of the game will follow. Some books claim that control of the 7th rank is worth as much as a pawn. This makes perfect sense. The 7th rank makes your rook better, and therefore more valuable than the opponent's piece. Though the 7th rank is the ultimate goal of every rook, due to its ability to attack pawns and tie down the enemy king, the 6th rank also has its virtues. It attacks any enemy pawn on that rank. Like a rook on the 7th, it allows for domination of a file by bringing a rook or queen up behind it. It is always ready to jump to the 7th. In this position, white stands better, because his bishop on e3 is much superior to the black bishop on g7. However, it doesn't seem like anyone will dominate the open C file. Matters change, though, as black plays b5. Since white can dominate the open file immediately by rook a to c1, rook c8 fighting for the open C file, rook c6. Now black must play rook takes rook on c6. Pawn takes rook. Now white has a crushing passed pawn on c6, and the black pawn on d6 is very weak. White has an advantage. This is a very useful idea of placing a rook on a weak square on the 6th and then building up behind it. The game continues. Rook c8, attacking the passed pawn. Rook c1, defending. Queen c7, stopping the pawn. a4, attacking the b5 pawn. Pawn takes pawn. Queen d3, attacking a weak a6 pawn. Rook a8, defending. Queen a3, attacking the a4 pawn. f5, black tries the counter-attack on the king side. Queen takes pawn on a4. Rook b8, unpinning and attacking the b4 pawn. Queen takes pawn on a6. Rook takes pawn on b4. Queen a7, attacking the black queen. Queen c8, or queen takes queen. Bishop takes queen. Bishop h6, attacking the rook on c1. c7. Bishop takes rook. c8, queen, check. King g7, queen c7, check. King g8, queen takes bishop on c1, winning. Back to the game. Queen c8, c7, rook b7, attacking the queen. And here follows a queen sacrifice. Queen takes rook on b7. Queen takes queen. c8, queen, check. Queen takes queen, and rook takes queen, check. White has an extra rook and wins. The creation of an open file and its occupation by a rook is a strategic element very often encountered. But many players are at a loss when coming across this very common strategic element and fail to exploit it. What is the use of an open file anyway? It is effectively a path via which the side that is better placed to do so can penetrate the opponent's camp. This invasion will create threats and interrupt the communication between the opponent's pieces. Thus, the creation and occupation of an opponent file greatly increase our chances of achieving our overall aim of winning the game. Care so that the open file can be exploited by us and not our opponent. It is very important to control an open file. Often, the struggle for a single open file decides the strategic battle. In the struggle for the open file, outposts are often used. In the battle for control of an open file, possession of an outpost on that file can constitute a major advantage. The rook can nestle into the outpost, and this may prepare a doubling or even a trebling of the major pieces on that file. This outpost can be particularly effective if it is supported by one or better two pawns. In this position, white plays rook c5, making full use of the outpost on c5. Black is then faced with a difficult decision. If he does nothing, then white will continue to increase the pressure on the open c file with moves such as rook d to c1 and queen c2. However, capturing on c5 allows white to get a very strong passed pawn. If white doesn't use his outpost on c5, black would play rook to c4. That's why rook c5. Rook takes rook on c5. White recaptures with the d4 pawn. The game continues. Queen c6, blocking the passed pawn. Rook a1, occupying the open a file. Rook a8, fighting for the open file. Rook takes rook, check. Queen takes rook. Queen c3, supporting the passed pawn. Queen c6, blocking the passed pawn again. Queen e5, centralizing the queen. g5, queen b8 check, king g7, queen b6, attacking the enemy queen. Black can't take on b6. The queen must retreat. Queen d7, c6, attacking the queen. Queen d6, pinning the pass pawn. But queen takes pawn on b5, and white is winning with two passed pawns. Rooks are especially powerful when you place them behind passed pawns, pawns that are advancing toward promotion and cannot be captured by an enemy pawn. Standing behind the pawn and supporting its advance establishes the most natural relation between the rook and the pawn. By themselves, the pawns might be successfully captured. With the rook behind them, they become a powerful force. The rook remains active and mobile behind the passed pawn. In sharp contrast, blockading a passed pawn is one of the most uncomfortable positions for the rook. In all types of positions, the rook is out of place as a blockader. In this position, white has placed the rook on a1 behind the passed pawn on a7. To prevent the pawn from promoting to a queen, black was forced to play rook to a8. The white rook is clearly playing a strong aggressive role. By contrast, the black rook is quite passive and cannot move along the rank without permitting the pawn to advance. To win, white will need only to move the king from e5 square to the key b7 square. On that square, the white king will attack the black rook, forcing it to move away or be captured. If black decides to move the rook along the 8th rank, the pawn will be able to advance and promote to queen. King d6, king f5, king c6, king e5, king b7, attacking the rook. Rook f8, a8 queen, rook takes queen, rook takes rook. White is winning with the extra rook. Okay, that's the lesson for today from the Eugene Grinis Chess School. I hope it was useful and you enjoyed it. If so, push likes, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and leave comments. Goodbye.